Okay, today I want to talk about something that I have always found really interesting. And I've talked about it before on a podcast, but it was like a short segment within like a larger podcast. So I just wanted to make this all on its own because I find it interesting and I think it will surprise a lot of people. A lot of people probably don't realize this because our founding fathers were super young. Like, we don't think of them as young guys because we have all these paintings of them that almost always make them appear middle age or older. And it could be because some of the paintings were done later in life, 30 years, 40 years after the fact, when they had already reached some prominence and we had already become an independent nation. But when they decided to declare independence, when they said, all right, here we go, we're going to do it. We're going to break away from England. We're going to start our own country. We're going to go to war. They were super young. Check this out. I pulled up an article here, and I'll just give you a little glimpse into some of the people, some of the more famous names that you'll recognize, and how old they were when they decided, let's do this. Let's become our own country. And another thing that I find interesting about this is that some people may look at this and be like, wow, they were really young. They didn't know anything. How some people might criticize it. Like, oh, these were kids, And then at the same time, we have a lot of people today, including myself, who think that the people in government now are far too old, that there's not enough younger people in Congress, that we've had the same people there for, a lot of them 30, 40 years, and nothing ever changes, and they don't really represent what, young adults and middle-aged people right now feel, because they can't relate. Anyway, here we go, into this article. And this is from citizenshipaei.org. How old were the Founding Fathers? While famous paintings of our America's Founding Fathers typically portray them as middle-aged or older, most were actually much younger than we tend to think during the founding of the nation. Todd Andrlik, in a post for the Journal of American Revolution, compiled the ages of the Founding Fathers on July 4th, 1776, and the results may surprise you. For instance, Benjamin Franklin, who was the oldest of the Founding Fathers, was already 70 years old. Which I didn't even think that. Like, I figured Benjamin Franklin was like 40s, 50s when the Declaration was signed, But no, he was already 70 years old, which is actually a ripe old age for that time. For 1776, like, that's doing pretty well if you're making it to 70. And, building a brand new nation. Benjamin Franklin was 70 years old, which was more than twice as old as Thomas Jefferson, who was only 33. Now, that's crazy for me to think because I'm 35, and I can't imagine founding a nation 2 years ago. That means James Madison and John Jay, who would later go on to write the Federalist Papers, were just 21, 25, respectively. A 21-year-old signed the Declaration of Independence. That's Alexander Hamilton, was only 21. And James Madison was only 25. That is insanity. Scientists will tell you that your brain is not even fully formed, fully developed until you're 25. So to be founding a country at 21 and 25 years old, and even 30, like I said, I'm 35. 5 years ago, that means I would take on this crazy responsibility. Like, maybe it was different back then. Maybe because, lifespan was a little shorter. There was a lot more ways to die at a younger age. Maybe people were more mature at 21. But I imagine, and I don't know if it's like this or not, but, like, I think to myself, like, were the Founding Fathers, like, at the Constitutional Convention, were they, like, laughing when people farted in the hall? Like, were they, like, would someone rip one and then everyone just start busting out laughing? Because you got 20-year-olds, a bunch of basically college-age kids writing the Declaration of Independence, and then later writing the Federalist Papers, drafting the Constitution. So this is insane. Let's see here. Marquis de Lafayette, the French citizen who became one of Washington's most trusted generals during the war, was 18 years old when the Declaration was signed. 26 years younger than George Washington. So they just have a list of it, so I'll just go through it real quick. Marquis de Lafayette, 18. Aaron Burr, 20 years old. Alexander Hamilton, 21. James Madison, 25. John Jay, 30. Thomas Jefferson, 33. Dude, King George, the king that we were seceding from in England, 38 years old. He was only 38 years old. Why was I picturing a 65-year-old man? I don't know, but that's what I picture, right? Thomas Paine, 39 years old. John Adams, 40. George Washington, 44. Samuel Adams, 53. And Benjamin Franklin, 70. Now, this is just a partial list of the people who signed the Declaration of Independence, but some of the more popular names. Wow, though. Wow. Most of these guys were under 35. More than a handful of them were under 30. And 3 of them were 21 or under. That's insanity. But like I said, you can look at it 2 ways. You can look at it like, man, they were so young, they didn't know anything yet. They didn't have any, real experience to be writing this profound things such as the Declaration of Independence, but also going on to draft the Constitution at the Constitutional Convention. Like, these were basically kids, man, like college-age kids, a lot of them. And I can imagine that, the older men of the group probably looked at them like that. Like, they looked at these 20-year-old kids like, these kids don't know anything. Like, I can imagine arguments ensuing between 53-year-old Samuel Adams, 44-year-old George Washington, and then the young bucks, James Madison, Alexander Hamilton, Aaron Burr. Like, I can imagine them being like, well, these old fogies, they're too old, they don't know. And then the old people being like, these young kids don't know anything. But they worked it out. That says something. And there's something to be said, too, for the fact that maybe that's what we need. Maybe that's what we need, man. Like, now. Maybe we need young people. We need a lot more young people to represent us, Back then, half of them were under 35. More than half of them were under 35, making major decisions on behalf of people. In the name of the people. And maybe that's what we need. We need some young bucks in there again. I personally think so. I think term limits are a good idea. I don't think people should be able to spend like these long 20, 30-year careers in Congress. I don't think you should be able to be reelected 10, 11, 12 times. There's no way those people can represent what the people that aren't wrapped up in government for 40 years actually want out of life, actually want out of their government. There's no way they can represent that because they haven't lived that. They're not men or women of the people anymore. They're a whole different class of people. They're politicians. So you have to imagine that they're really out of touch at a certain point. I think term limits are a good idea. And I think that more young people should be running for office and we should be electing some of them, Anyway, I found this really interesting when I first found out about it a couple of years ago. And I don't know, I was just thinking about it on the way to work today for some reason. I'm like, what am I going to talk about on the podcast today? And then I just started thinking about these super young founding fathers. Anyway, I'd love to hear what you guys think about it. You can hit me up on Instagram at RealBrettScott. Let me know what you think. if you're watching this on YouTube, just drop comments down below. Subscribe if you enjoy this. If you enjoy this content, what I try to do on this channel, on my Brett Scott YouTube channel and on my Brett Scott Daily podcast, is talk about a new random topic each day. And it's everything from pop culture and entertainment to news and history, as you can tell here. And sometimes it's just stories from my life. I just try to pick a random topic each day that I find interesting to talk about. Something that I think that people could either benefit from or be entertained by. So if you're into that sort of thing, please subscribe to the podcast, Brett Scott Daily. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Just hit the subscribe button. Hit that notification bell so you get my videos when I upload them every day. And if you decide to stick around and subscribe, then I will talk to you again tomorrow.